I often get angry with myself. But why am I so unsure of myself all the time? And why don't I truly believe in myself? After all, it makes my life more difficult, especially now that I have a boyfriend. I really like him, and I don't want to ruin everything. So I just need to share my story and get your opinion. My name is Katie, and I live with my dad. 2 years ago, my mother left us and ran away with another lover. My father couldn't cope with it and started drinking. He spent over 6 months in his garage without ever putting the bottle down. When he finally quit, it turned out that we had absolutely no money. Dad's a mechanic. Collecting and repairing cars is all he knows how to do. But now, nobody wants anything to do with him. So I had to start earning money. But I also have school. I would have dropped out, but I don't want to be like my mother. She gave birth to me at 16 and never went back. I understand that I need an education, but I hope you know how hard it is for me to see all of these girls dressed up, when all I have is my old sweater, which I recently patched a hole on, by the way. Dean is who noticed it. Dean is the most popular guy in our school. I remember the day we first spoke. If he had known more about cars, it never would have happened at all. Here's what happened. I was on my way home from school and saw him on the road. He was leaning against his Porsche with his hands on his head. I realized that his car had broken down, and I figured I could help. After all, I had grown up in my father's garage, and at 13 had already put together a carburetor. But I was embarrassed to talk to Dean and passed him. Then he called to me. Hey, how are you? We go to the same school, right? I had often dreamed about Dean talking to me, but in my head, it never sounded so horrible. This self-absorbed ass wasn't even sure that he had seen me before. He asked to use my phone because his was dead, and he needed to call for help. But I didn't have one. I know what you're thinking. Who doesn't have a phone? But a couple of months ago, I had to choose between buying a phone and making a mortgage payment. I chose the latter. Since I was ashamed to tell him, I offered to check out what was wrong with the car. Dean didn't mind. I felt him watching me closely as I examined the car, and I blushed terribly. But I knew what I was doing. After all, I just love cars. I didn't find anything under the hood, and looked into the passenger compartment to take a look at the fuse box. It smelled so nice. Dean had the best of everything. As I had suspected, he had blown a fuse. No big deal. I knew there'd be one in my father's garage to replace it. I mentioned this to Dean before I realized that I would need to go with him to get the fuse. Damn it, I didn't want him to see how I live. Plus, I didn't know what to talk about or how to act with him. The 10-minute walk to my house seemed like an eternity. I was terribly shy, and there was an awkward silence the entire time. Finally, we got the fuse, made it back to the car, and I quickly fixed it. Now I was free. Dean even whistled with delight when the car started up. He pressed the gas, and the engine roared. I also got a bit of a rush. The sound of an old Porsche is so awesome. Apparently, I involuntarily smiled, because Dean said, "Wow, your first smile this whole time." He asked if I liked his ride. I loved it. But instead, I mumbled that it wasn't bad, a little weathered. "Like that sweater," he said softly, holding my hand. "You must love it a lot to be wearing it even with a hole." From that moment on, Dean started saying hello to me at school. But to even dream that a guy like him would pay attention to a girl like me was a sign of mental illness. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about him. One day, he gave me a ride home. We chatted about cars and engines, and it even seemed like we had a lot in common. And then, Dean asked me out on a date. But I turned him down. I told him that I had a lot to do and quickly got out of the car. Why did I do that? Probably because I was scared. Because I couldn't trust him. I couldn't believe that he really wanted to go out with me, because I knew which kind of girls he usually went out with, and I don't look anything like them. Maybe if you dressed me up and did my hair, but I don't have the money for that stuff, and I don't even know how to make myself up. And to laugh on command like they did, let alone to flirt, Dean wasn't a match for me, and that's all there was to it. I was home alone on a Friday. I was trying to stay busy as a distraction, but I couldn't get our last conversation out of my head. And suddenly, I heard the roar of his motor outside the windows. Dean said that something was wrong with his car again, and he would be grateful if I could take a look at it. He suggested that it was a fuse again, and I opened the car door. In the front seat was a huge bouquet and a note. Katie, walk with me. So we started dating. At least, that's what I want to believe. Dean bought me a phone. He buys me new clothes and takes me to restaurants for dinner. I know how it sounds. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing by accepting his gifts. Sometimes it feels like I'm just a toy for him. It's like I'm a little dog that he picked up on the street and now he wants to turn me into a purebred. Sometimes I think I'm just paranoid. He is sincerely kind to me, and he really likes me. Damn self-doubt! I'm so used to being an outcast and going unnoticed that the role of the girlfriend of the coolest guy in school just plagues me. And also his rich friends. It's hard for me to be in their company and feel like a stranger every time. What else should I do? Should I keep dating Dean? I'd love to hear your advice, because I have no one else to discuss it with.
Hi, my name is Jace. I brought my girlfriend, Emmy, home for the first time a year ago. My dad immediately liked her. He put a hand on her back and said, "Welcome, girl." I was already dreaming that we would have a strong family, but everything turned out to be much funnier and more ironic than I thought. My girlfriend Emmy was just a beauty. Long legs, pretty face. Although the face could have been better. She had the demeanor of a little fluffy cat. Her body was simply amazing. She had been dancing for more than 10 years. When we were left alone in the bedroom, she always turned the light off with her foot. We started living together in the same house as my dad. Dad was on the first floor, and Emmy and I were on the second. So one day, I came home and saw Dad sitting with my girlfriend in the kitchen. And when I walked in, they started acting all nervous. They were discussing something quite expressively, but when I showed up, they got quiet. I didn't even think anything of it. Maybe my dad just liked to chat with my girlfriend. The next morning, I was taking out the trash and found this in the can. Strange. We always use protection. There was no reason to worry. Then why would someone in this house take a test? I decided to make a joke out of it and brought the test to my girlfriend that same night. She reacted with a bright smile, as if she'd been trying to prank me. We laughed, but then had a serious talk. She told me that she had taken the test because she had been experiencing strange symptoms lately. She also told me that the test was negative. We went to sleep. The day after that, I found my dad and my girlfriend in the kitchen, again. They were sitting there, looking very excited, and I started getting bad thoughts in my head. And what they told me shocked me. Emmy opened her mouth first, said, "Jace, I'm pregnant." I was both happy and upset, but Dad continued to look me straight into my eyes. The pause lasted an eternity. But then she said, "I'm pregnant by Ted." That was my father's name. How's that for a twist? My girlfriend was claiming that she was pregnant, not by me, but by my father? They had been hiding this from me for a long time. It was not the first month, and Emmy was already showing. They had already decided to tell me before it was too late. She had been in a relationship with my father for a long time, but Dad didn't want to upset me because he saw I loved Emmy. But damn, I was not expecting that. Until recently, I had been sleeping with Emmy in the same bed, and now she had a relationship with the closest person in my life. How would you react to that situation? Write in the comments. I took everything quite calmly. If they wanted to be together, then fine. Even though my dad is 37 years old and Emmy is only 20. I wished them happiness and finally moved out of my dad's place to my own house. Yes, I was renting a 37 square meter studio and working 8 hours a day. But it's better than listening to a baby cry and moan. And not just the baby, if you know what I mean. Everything was fine. But one day, Dad called me and asked me if he could spend the night at my place. That day, we both slept in my small apartment. Emmy had started driving him crazy. She had become aggressive and anxious. The baby always cried and was keeping him awake. What'd you expect? An adult life my not-so-adult dad couldn't handle. He started spending the night more and more often and started drinking. And then Emmy came to me and said that I should help her with the baby because my useless father couldn't do it. How arrogant of her. My ex-girlfriend, who had already had a child with my father, was asking me for help, and boldly, at that. Basically, blame me or not, but I turned her down. Plus, I let that couple know everything I thought about them. I paid the rent and left for sunny California. It was the best decision. True, I have to start my life from scratch, but it's better than having to hang around a worthless dad and his sick girlfriend. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. How could you? To which I will answer, to hell with them. They did this to themselves. Let them figure it out. And that's my story. Write in the comments what you all think about it.